now also had the email. Rush, I don't believe you really. The Congressional Black Caucasians want the families of the Gentle Giant and Garner to be honored guests at the State of the Union. Yep, got it right here. From thehill.com. Black lawmakers want Brown Garner families invited to the State of the Union. Members of the Congressional Black Caucasians are talking about inviting the families of Eric Garner and Michael Brown to Obama's State of the Union address in Washington next month. Stop and think about it now. See, in certain places, like on CNN, in the New York Times, on MSNBC, on CBS, ABC, and NBC, these people are heroes. Don't laugh. The Gentle Giant's a hero. Look at all the people that watch CNN. Well, there aren't that many, but the people who do have been lied to from the get-go about this. They have those 5 players for the Rams that came out during pregame introductions last Sunday with their hands raised, don't shoot, hands up. They probably believe. I'm sure that they have been lied to about what really happened there. That's what journalism has become. And so, as such, they're heroes. They're legitimate heroes to people that are dead wrong about all this. Garner is a hero, and the Gentle Giant is a hero, and the Congressional Black Caucasians, these people are heroes. They died for the cause. And what's the cause? That there is an inherent flaw in the founding of the country, and we haven't done a damn thing to address it. We thought electing the first black president would fix it, but as Rangel said, that's only made it worse. Why leave out Trayvon Martin's family? If you're going to invite these bunch, invite Trayvon Martin's family in there. And maybe the family of the Fort Hood shooter. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of racism out there that leads to this kind of behavior that we need to take time, stop, and try to understand. The lawmakers who have universally condemned the justice system's response to the killings of the 2 black men at the hands of white police officers, see how this works, say the presence of the 2 men's relatives would send a strong signal that Washington policymakers are serious about tackling criminal justice reform head on. What are we supposed to do? Is the criminal justice system supposed to be reformed so that the criminals are allowed to be criminals? Do we reform it in such a way the criminals are allowed to get away with it? I mean, what are we talking about here? The mayor of New York, de Blasio, says the cops need to go away for 3 days to have sensitivity training, to be able to learn situational sensitivity training. And what else did he call it? Some sort of non-judgmental posture training. The cops are supposed to show up at a criminal act and not be judgmental about it. And nobody dares suggest that the criminal element change its behavior. Not one person. And if you do, if you happen to suggest, well, maybe the criminal element needs to change its behavior, then here come the arrows aimed right at you. You don't understand. You're perpetuating the flawed nature of the founding of the country. You are illustrating the inherent racism that exists in it. Racism means you should apprehend people breaking the law. What are we supposed to do? Let them get away with it? Listen to this again. The lawmakers say the presence of the 2 men's relatives sitting at Mrs. Obama's side, State of the Union, would send a strong signal that Washington policymakers are serious about tackling criminal justice reform head on. Are they going to do something about training the criminal element to stop attacking policemen? Do you think maybe that ought to go on at the same time? Let me tell you all, I was telling Snerdley this story. To me, certain of us are raised in certain ways, and certain of us aren't. I remember when I was 10 10, 9, something like that. My brother would have been a couple years younger. And my dad, we lived in southeast Missouri. My dad had to go to Arkansas it might have gone down for a Mizzou, Arkansas football game. I don't know which, but he got pulled over late at night by an African-American state trooper in Arkansas. And he was speeding. And he came home and told me about it. And he used it as a lesson. I said, he told me about it. I said, well, what did you do? Were you speeding? He said, I was. And I said, well, little kid, did you go to jail? What happened? No. He said, son, whenever a policeman stops you, just serve them out. I'll never forget him saying that to me. Just whatever they say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. You show them respect. Sir them out is what my dad said, meaning just show them all the respect in the world. And that's how I grew up. And I didn't grow up fearful. I grew up respectful. But some people don't, obviously, when I understand why. But in this era in which we find ourselves, don't you think it's a little scary, ladies and gentlemen, that the reform only needs to happen among law enforcement? We had criminal acts occur in both of these scenarios, and that is ignored. And to listen to the news media and all of the people involved in that side of this talk about this, the only acts that were egregious here were committed by the cops. The mayor is throwing them under the bus. And I want to repeat something I said an hour ago, too, is I think this is kind of ironic. The left loves big government, do they not? Oh, I was thinking about this last night when I was chatting email-wise with some friends. The left loves big government, and they love power, do they not? That's what they love big government for. They live and breathe for the government to exercise that power, especially against their enemies. So when Obama tells the IRS to really give the Tea Party the business and they do it, the left applauds. The left is all for massive shows of government force and power, except here. After all, what is the police? It's the state. The police is the law enforcement branch of the government. But they're not supposed to use force. Isn't that fascinating? They're not supposed to be powerful. They're not. So here's the left basically getting what they ask for. And they don't like it. They want powerful governments, powerful states. They want armed forces dealing with their enemies, domestically, of course. And yet, when it happens, they become the biggest conservatives in the world in the sense that that's too much force. That's too much power. We got to dial back the power to cops. Isn't it fascinating, folks? It is to me. These people, when they reap what they sow, they don't like it at all. And now we throw President Obama in the mix. From a reporter here at thehill.com named Amy Parnes, President Obama said yesterday, many Americans feel there's a deep unfairness about how laws are applied on a day-to-day basis, responding to the news a day earlier of a New York City police officer who was not indicted for choking an unarmed black man. By the way, once again, and let me find it, he was not choked. It was not a chokehold. This is another gross misrepresentation, violation of the truth. And what happened here? There was no chokehold. Eric Garner was not choked. Let me take you back to August 2014, New York Post. Bo Dietl, not one of my big fans, by the way, one time expressed a desire that even I be in jail. But nevertheless, Bo Dietl well-known New York law enforcement figure, consultant, cop, and so forth, had an op-ed in the New York Post, not in August, at the very front end of this. And he starts his piece, "It wasn't a chokehold." That's just the biggest single distortion in all the talk about the Eric Garner case, in which the public has been misinformed and misled from the start. The Reverend Al Sharpton has never had to put himself in harm's way to protect our streets against crime, as our cops do every day. He is in no way qualified to stand on his soapbox and dictate procedures. I spent decades in law enforcement. During my time with the NYPD, I was responsible for over 1,400 felony arrests, any of which could have required the use of deadly physical force. Now, as owner of a security company here in the city, I consult for police departments across the country. So I speak with some authority on the events surrounding Garner's attempted arrest and death. It's tragic that a life was lost, but I'm outraged at how this incident's being used to hobble the NYPD. This is Bo Dietl back in August. It wasn't a chokehold. I have a good friend of mine's a former SWAT commander, Sacramento Police Force. He's been sending me, it wasn't a chokehold. He's been telling me what it is. Specific names for these types of techniques that are used. But it wasn't a chokehold. Doesn't matter. The people in the media and the people on the left and have determined it's going to be a chokehold, and that's what people are going to be told, and that's what we're going to cover, and that's what we're going to have guests commenting on. And by the time we're finished with this, everybody in our audience is going to believe he was choked to death. But he wasn't. Bo Dietl. The officers who approached Garner were responding to community complaints about his ongoing activities. When he grew uncooperative and resisted arrest, they followed protocol on taking him into custody. Officers are required to be as quick as they can in getting a perp into custody so he has no chance to injure the officer, innocent bystanders, or himself. Got to take a break. But the point is, it wasn't a chokehold. And people have been told it wasn't a chokehold since August. And the media knows it wasn't a chokehold. They choose to ignore and instead make it up based entirely on what they want people to think it was. And I'm telling you, this stuff is tearing our culture and our country apart. We'll be back.